Good evening and welcome to the Speak Easy podcast. I am your host, Constance Willard, and October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And here at the Speak Easy, we are dedicating each series for the entire month of October on breast cancer awareness. We have a group of amazing panelists from surgeons, physicians, breast cancer survivors, breast cancer advocates, healthcare providers, you name it. We have them coming to the speakeasy to heighten awareness and to educate you, the public, so that we can wipe out this dreadful disease. Our guest this evening is a veteran, an author, a preacher, inspirational speaker, and a two-time breast cancer survivor. Now, while she was undergoing active treatment for cancer, she formed and founded an organization known as Cancer Option Collaborative, formerly known as Christians Overcoming Cancer. Now, this is a 501c3 that provides resources for patients undergoing active treatment for cancer to help prevent eviction, repossessions of automobiles, utility disconnects, and so much more. Please welcome to the Speakeasy our phenomenal panelists and guests, Mary Jenkins. Good evening, Mary. How are you?
Good evening. I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I am wonderful. The day after my birthday, and I am just doing great.
Oh, good. Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm still on the high from yesterday. And
That is
so
beautiful.
you are a breast cancer survivor 2 times. And
That
so
is
I
correct.
want you to just kind of walk the audience through what was going on with you when you were first diagnosed and what you went through and your success stories.
Okay. Well, in my case, I didn't have any symptoms like most people have. And one of the things about breast cancer, no two stories are alike. And so in my case, I was actually wrestling with my son, who at the time, I think he was 15. And, boys, I'm strong mom. And so we were actually just wrestling and he accidentally elbowed me in the chest. And when he did that, it hurt. And I was like, oh my goodness, this hurts. And so after about 3 days of being in pain, I went to the emergency room. And there the ER doctor thought he felt something in my breast, but wasn't sure. And so because of that, he said, maybe you might want to get a mammogram. And at the time I was only 38. And so I was like, well, you don't have mammograms until you're 40. So, it's not something else. And they said, well, let's rule out, it being anything. And so I said, okay. And I agreed. On January the 10th of 2006, I went and had a mammogram at the age of 38. They did the mammogram and they left me in the room after the test was done. And they left me in there for a little while. So I knew something was going on. I just didn't know what. And so when finally the doctor came in and the nurse, they said that they did see something on the mammogram and they wanted to do an ultrasound and, just to get a measurement and possibly do a biopsy of the sample to see if it in fact was cancer. And so they did both of those 2 tests. And when they got the sample, the doctor put it in a solution. And based off the way the solution responded, he said it definitely was cancer, but we just didn't know what grade it was. And so I ended up being diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma, triple negative, stage 3, almost stage 4, just because of the size of it. And with that particular type of cancer, any triple negative cancer is like super, super aggressive.
Mm.
When it's a triple negative, that means the cancer is not hormone based, so it's not developing off hormones. And so most of the research that's done is for hormone based cancers where people can take the chemo pill and other pills. But when it's triple negative, you can't. And so your options are aggressive chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation if need be. And so in my case, I started aggressive chemotherapy because it was stage 3, almost stage 4. I started doing chemo and I was getting sick all the time, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and still trying to go to work because I'm a single parent, and was just still trying to make it happen while battling cancer. And there were a few times that my employer found me in the bathroom on the floor because my body would get hot and the floor was cold. And so I'd lay down on the floor just to try to, cool off. And one day they found me on the floor and they said that I was a really a liability to the company. Because if something, happened to me, it could be an issue. And so they let me go. And when they let me go, I was like, at first, I was like, oh, this is great because, I'm not going to have to worry about getting up early in the morning and going to work. I'm be able to sleep in because I'm tired anyway, which seemed fine until the time came that I needed help paying some bills because I had no paycheck. And not having a paycheck was something because, and then even in that, my situation was different because my husband had died on active duty many, many years prior. And that being the case, I was receiving a widow's pension, but then I was also working a full-time job. And between the two of those, I was able to provide for my sons a very stable household. So when my employer let me go and I lost half my income, it was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because I still have to pay the bills. And so I reached out to the Susan G. Komen Foundation because I figured that, they're breast cancer. I got breast cancer, so we can talk breast cancer. And when I went to them, that's when I found out that of the millions of dollars that they raised, none of it actually went to help people like the way I needed help.
Wow.
It was funding cancer research, it was funding treatment, but it was not helping with the electric, the gas, the water, the rent, stuff like that. And so when I inquired, where should I turn to, they referred me to the American Cancer Society, and I found out that they too don't provide the service. And so, since I wasn't able to find the help that I needed, I turned to my church, and was like, I need to have a conversation with the Lord because this don't make any sense. I'm walking by faith, and I need some understanding. And so I went to my church and was having a conversation in the sanctuary, and it was heated. I was loud, and the leadership team overheard. And they came like, my pastor, and then what's going on? And I explained the situation. And so my church offered to pay my bills for me the time that I was in treatment, which that is a blessing in itself. Shout out to Columbus Christian Center Church, then Dr. David C. Forbes and Dr. Tracy Forbes for stepping in such a way, because them helping me to pay my bills made it possible for me to realize like somebody has to do something. And in talking with them, they were like, you're right, Mary, somebody has to do something. I just didn't realize that it was going to be me. And so I started the organization. And because it was, me and my church, we were Christians Overcoming Cancer. And that's what was the name of the organization was. And, we started providing services to breast cancer patients, helping them pay bills. But then when we were 4 months old, we got a referral of a woman that had cervical cancer. And I told her we couldn't help her because she had the wrong type of cancer. And in doing that, I was like, what's the right kind? And so we changed our mission to include all cancers. And then people started coming from all over. They were being referred from the well-known cancer organizations. And so you scroll forward, now 16 years, and we have provided services to people in all 50 states and have contacts with organizations internationally. And we are the ones, it's like our focus is raising money to help people battling cancer pay their bills so that way they can focus on recovery. So we're not funding cancer research, which, I mean, cancer research is important. I understand early detection is important, but I also know that when you can't go to work because you're doing chemo, or you can't go to work because you've had surgery and you're recovering, or for whatever reason that you can't go to work, you need help paying the bills. And so our focus is helping them pay the bills.
So let me go back and ask you a question. You mentioned Susan G. Komen and
Hmm.
the American Cancer Society and how
Hmm.
all of their funding was for research only. Is it still that way today?
So the Susan G. Komen Foundation actually now has a um, financial assistance. And I say with quotation marks because it's $300 once in your life.
Wow. That's it.
So, yeah. Mhm.
Wow. Wow. And
And
so if
well, I do
someone,
want to say this.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So there are other cancer organizations out there that provide financial assistance. The thing is, the way that what sets us apart is we don't say we can help you with housing up to $500. We want to know how much the housing is, and we'll raise the money and then pay the bill. So we
Okay.
want to meet the need, not just put a band-aid on it.
Okay, great. That's good to know. So someone need to get in touch with the Cancer Option Collaborative. How would they do that?
They could reach out to us online, which is www.T as in Tom, H as in Henry, E as in Eric, C as in Charlie, O as in Oscar, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie again, A as in Adam, R as in Robert, E as in Eric, S as in Sam.org. So it's
Okay,
www.thecoccares.org.
gotcha. Okay, so I'm putting that in the chat just in case someone needs that. It's available to the public to see that there is help available. And that's so
Yes,
important. And I hear that not only with cancer, but other illnesses as well. You know, things happen, people get sick, there's a loss in income, but the bills don't stop.
bills don't stop.
And the bill collectors do not care. And
That
so
is true.
if you do not have short-term disability insurance or either long-term disability insurance, and a lot of it is so expensive you can't afford it. So, what do you do when you're faced with that challenge? And when you're ill and trying to recover, you know, the less stress, the better. You know, I believe that. And if you have to worry about, oh my gosh, I'm sick. Oh my gosh, they're going to turn my lights off tomorrow. Or they're going to come get my car. I won't be able to get treatment. That is too much of a burden for anyone to bear. So, my hat's off to you
Thank
and
you.
your church coming up with this organization. And you know, I say all the time that our struggles and our challenges, they're about us, but they're not for us. By you going through what you went through, started something amazing for others. So I commend you and your church on that. I really do.
Thank you so much.
So you are a two-time breast cancer survivor. So how, okay, so you went through remission
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
recovery. So what was the time
So
frame that a second occurrence happened?
So in 2006 is when I was diagnosed. And so I had my right breast removed in September of 2006. Then I postponed having reconstruction done because I was focusing on building the nonprofit. Then in 2012, I had a reconstruction surgery done. So I had a tram flap and a tummy tuck. In having that surgery done, where they take the tissue from my abdomen to make another breast,
Mhm.
the surgeon that did it didn't also have the credentials to be able to fix if something went wrong. And the one thing that could go wrong went wrong. And this being the case, the surgeon sent me to a nursing home for 6 months. The tissue died on me while I was in the nursing home and almost killed me. And I had to have, I guess you call it radical surgery to remove the tissue. And so I still was building the organization while fighting for my life in 2012. And then in 2015, in July of 2015, I was at a speaking engagement in uh, Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I started feeling like I just needed to get a mammogram. I think something's wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. I just had this feeling. And so when I returned home, I actually contacted my doctor and said, I think something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but I just have a feeling I need a mammogram. And fortunately, they know enough that if I say I feel a certain kind of way, then I'm in tune with something. And so We did the test, and sure enough, 7 days later, I was diagnosed with cancer on the other side in the left breast, but it was not metastatic. It was a completely different strain, but it was still breast
Wow.
cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so this one was not a negative strain, the one that you had the second occurrence.
No, it was triple negative, but it
Okay.
was different than the first time,
Oh,
which
wow.
they
Wow.
don't even know how. And I'm like, well, I don't know how. So I mean, but it was not metastatic. It was literally a second strain in me.
Okay. So tell me about the speaking that you do. I'm sure it's on the circuit to help advocate for breast cancer awareness and
No.
funding, but also to inspire as well. So just tell us about that.
So in my public speaking, I am all about overcoming. And so I'm a preacher. And so
Okay.
Revelation 12:11 says that we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so I share my testimony. I want people to understand that just because you've been diagnosed with cancer, that does not mean it's a death sentence. You know, we get to overcome because the scriptures say that by the stripes that Jesus took that we are healed. And so I'm heavy into encouraging people that Romans 8:28 is really real. All things really do work together for good to those
Yes.
who love God and are called according to his purpose. The challenge is when the things happen, we fall apart. We say, oh, we believe in these things, but then get diagnosed with cancer. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and we worry. So that goes against it. And so I get the awesome privilege of helping to encourage people to understand that in spite of what they're dealing with, in spite of it, because I've had lots of experiences, that God still can, He still does, and He still will. And so, and most of my speaking engagements are doing that. And then I also get invited places to raise money. And I don't have a problem asking for donations because this is what I have learned. The only thing people are going to say is yes or no. And if they say yes, great. And if they say no, great. Next person, because there's somebody that's battling cancer that needs me to ask for that donation.
Now, how did I know that you were not afraid to ask for money? I kind of gathered that just the fact that while you were actively undergoing treatment and sick and not feeling well, that you were steady advocating on the behalf of not only yourself, but on the behalf of others. And
Mhm.
you formed this wonderful organization.
Thank
You
you.
spearheaded that with your church and you got all this funding going for patients who are in need.
Mm.
So, how did I know that you are not afraid to ask
Not
for
afraid.
money?
And
And
see,
that's the
like,
type of advocate we need.
yes. So when I first started the organization, I am so thankful that, like I said, that my church stepped up to be able to help me pay the bills. And then, we didn't know what we were creating, and I didn't know what I was creating. All I know is I was going to let people know where money does and does not go in the world of cancer. I was like, somebody needs to let people know. Somebody needs to let people, because there's somebody out there that wants to make $1 million donation, and they
Mhm.
think that if they give it to the well-known cancer organization that's helping people, and it's helping but in a different way. It's not helping with the immediate need now. And so I'm like, if I tell enough people and I speak enough times, somewhere that person's going to say, you know what, that young lady is right. I never thought about it like that. I never thought about, if you have a mom and dad and the child gets diagnosed with cancer, and, is mom going to go to work or is dad going to go to work? Which one of them is going to be with the child? And if something happens to that child while, during that time, what if one of the parents are gone to work? And there's so much emotional issues that go on. What if you're a single parent and you get diagnosed with cancer and then you've got to stay overnight in the hospital? Who's going to help you with your kids? Who's going to be able to cover that child care? There's so much that comes into it. And I'm like, somebody needs to let the world know that this is what's happening. And so actually just recently, I said, you know what? People need to have real conversations about what's going on in the world of cancer, not from a research standpoint, not from a trying to find a cure, but from what people battling cancer are actually dealing with. And
The
that is real. Yes,
everyday situations, and you're
every day.
absolutely right. And a lot of people, I know myself, a couple of years ago, I wanted to donate money, and I'm like, okay, who do I give it to? Do I give it to the homeless society or battered women's shelter or feed my sheep? Who do I give it to? Because there's such a great need out there. And so you're right. There are people who have money they want to donate, but they do not know the best place, or they need that guidance or that push to
Mm-hmm.
get it to the best place. And so
Yeah.
again, I commend you on what you have done and what you are doing. And I know that God will continue to bless and provide so that you can continue to help
Amen.
those in need. I mean,
Amen.
it's
Because
got to happen.
it's real. I
Yeah,
mean, the struggle of people battling cancer, like people have no idea. Like, for example, St. Jude refers families that need help to us. And people are like, St. Jude? But St. Jude raises millions. I'm like, yes, but it raises the millions to fund the work of the hospital, to
exactly.
make certain that the staff are paid, to make certain that there's state of the art equipment and all the things which are necessary. And my thing is just, can they take a little bit of the money and set it aside to help the people? Because if somebody comes from out of town and they come to the hospital, their child's battling cancer, they come to the hospital, they stay in the Ronald McDonald House, which is great because there's no cost to the family. But what if the family doesn't have help paying their own electric bill at their house? Treatment ends, they go home and there's no electricity.
Exactly. Exactly.
Talk about the extra stress.
Hmm. And that's
Mhm.
something to think about because, the parents may take turns taking off from work, and, you only get so much leave per year. And then when that leave runs out, what do you do? Because you can't abandon your child. You have to be there for
Mhm.
your child.
Correct.
A
And
lot
I
of them
just found out
do not
about
understand.
this. I just found out about this, which I mean, I'm still processing it because I can't believe that it's really happening. We know that, the government has recently overturned Roe versus Wade.
Hmm.
And but I didn't realize that this could happen. So there's some women that are in Ohio, and that's where I'm at. They're here in Ohio. They were diagnosed with cancer, but they also found out they're pregnant. And they've got aggressive cancer. So they have to have aggressive chemo. And they had started chemotherapy, but they don't want, the damage that it's going to do to the unborn child. They wanted to terminate the pregnancy. And now in Ohio, they cannot. And so these two women made a decision to stop chemotherapy.
Oh no.
So I'm like, what do you mean? So they've stopped treatment so that way they can go ahead and, you know, bring to term this child, when the reality of it is, in doing that, then there's a strong possibility that the cancer is going to spread and can cause them to die in a young age unnecessarily. And now you have
Mhm.
a child that won't have a parent.
Exactly.
And I'm
Wow.
like, you have got to be kidding me.
Wow. So have you had the opportunity to go before Congress or the legislature to speak?
Oh, years and years ago.
Okay.
Um, oh God, I want to say in 2009, I had the opportunity to explain the magnitude of what we were doing, and they were shocked. It's like it because it wasn't part of their life. So think of it this way: I'm making 300,000-400,000 a year, and I get diagnosed with cancer, and I'm salaried, and so I'm going to get paid either way. They don't understand the person that works 40 hours a week, that if they have to take time off from work, they're not going to get paid 40 hours. They're going to get paid however many less hours. They don't understand. They don't understand that. And that's kind of like even celebrities, because, just recently, Katie Couric got diagnosed with cancer. She went
Hmm.
through her breast cancer. I'm glad they caught it early. I'm glad she was able to have the lumpectomy to remove the mass. I'm glad. But the reality of it is, she was not going to be hurting financially. So although her story is great and she's bringing about awareness, those things are very, very important. The thing is, she never had to worry about her lights getting cut off. She never had to worry about being evicted. She never had to worry about her car getting repossessed because her level of influence. And so celebrities are out there, and they get behind cancer research left and right. But I'm like, you're forgetting about the people.
So
What
if
about the
someone
people?
wants to donate to your organization, just go to the same website here.
Yes, they can actually, we have it specific. So www.inspirational, THECOCCARES.org. That's our main one. And then / and the word donate. So
Okay.
if they go to straight just to www.thecoccares.org / donate, then it'll take them straight to our donation page.
Gotcha. I'm putting that out there in the chat as well. Okay. All right. So you have a book.
Yes.
Tell us about your book.
So while I was battling cancer, I stood strong on the scriptures. And so I operate on a very high level of faith. And so a few years ago, a friend of mine was in his third battle with cancer, and he expressed that he was unsure if he had enough faith to make it through the journey. And so I told him I had enough faith for me and him. Asked him how long his treatment was going to be, which was 30 days. And I said I would search the scriptures. And so I searched the scriptures for a specific scripture each day to help increase faith, and then attached commentary to it, and then told him what to do. And then one day I was having a conversation, and the lady asked, had I ever compiled anything? And I told her no. And she said, you sure? And I explained about having did this work for my friend, and she asked for it, and I sent it to her, and she was like, oh my goodness, you have a daily devotional.
Wow.
And I was like, And she said, yes, it's a 30-day devotional, and it's called Destined to Overcome. And
Wow.
that's because I am a firm believer that everyone is destined to overcome. They just need some help getting there on the rough days.
Wow. 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 That is totally amazing. And it
Thank
just
you.
holds true that God has given us talents and He has given us everything. It's right there in our hands, what we need to make it
Everything.
and overcome. We already have
Mhm.
it within us. We just have to trust and believe.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have to trust and believe. Oh my
hmm
gosh. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
And so that book is available on Amazon, as
Okay.
well as it has its own website. And the website is www.destined2overcome.com.
Is it
So
number two?
no, is it? No, it's the word TO.
Okay.
Destined2overcome.com.
Got you. All right. So I'm putting that out there in the chat as well. And that is also available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you have any final thoughts or recommendations to give to someone who may be going through this journey right now, or someone who may suspect that they have it and are in fear, living in fear right now because they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid to go and get checked?
So I actually met a lady not an hour ago who said she is afraid to go get a mammogram. And I said to her, honey, let me explain something to you. The price that you will pay for not going to get a mammogram far exceeds the pain that you will feel for those 10 seconds when they squish your breast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just when you think about it, if you're afraid and you don't go, especially if you feel something, you know, and if you're over 40, it's time. Because here's one thing, and I'm speaking specifically to African American females. We are such caretakers that we will put everybody else before us. But
Yes.
here's the truth when it comes to cancer. We are diagnosed less often, but we die more often. Then, and that's because we'll feel something and we'll talk ourselves out of it being a thing, and then don't go to the doctor. And in the end, when we get diagnosed, it's usually a triple negative. And by being a triple negative, our options are limited. And as a result, we die early unnecessarily. So
Wow.
go to the doctor.
Wow. Yes, please, please go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this thing where, pair up with someone, phone a friend and just say, hey, okay, it's time to do your breast check. Phone a friend, support each other because this is so important. It is so important. And the earlier that is caught, the better the outcome. I'm a firm
Yes.
believer in that. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I have one final question. As far as health and wellness and nutrition, how important is that to recovery for breast cancer?
It is important to everything, recovery, our overall well being, the way we live life. It is absolutely important because this is one thing that I firmly believe. The way we eat, and the fact that we don't get enough sleep and we're overweight, we don't exercise, all these things have an effect on our immune system. And if our immune system is not strong, it cannot do what it's designed to do, which is to destroy any abnormal cells in the body. And so the abnormal cells keep multiplying. Then after a while, they take over. And once they take over, there's nothing you can do. And so
Yes.
nutrition is very, very important. Um, Nutrition, exercise, proper sleep, forgiveness. You'd be surprised how much unforgiveness can just mess with a person's total way of being. And so if they're recovering, all these things can have a negative effect.
Okay. All right. So I want to thank our phenomenal guest, Mary Jenkins, for coming and sharing and giving her insight and telling her story and her testimony, her phenomenal testimony of overcoming two-time breast cancer survivor. That is a testimony all by itself. And so I
Amen.
thank you, Mary Jenkins, for coming and sharing. I thank you again for the work that you're doing. I want you to continue. Please continue to do that because the need is so great. And to our listening audience, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. And until the next time that we meet, may God continue to bless you richly today, tomorrow, and always. Take care.
Amen. Amen.